You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Well, Rick, it is now time to introduce a most unique man. This erstwhile rocket scientist, a former pioneer of space exploration with NASA, is now the General Air Traffic Controller of New York's LaGuardia area. Things should go real bang with this chap, Rick. Here is Jameson Winger.
Yay!
Hello, guys. How are you?
Jameson, how's it going, buddy?
All right, man.
Well, thanks so much. Do you want us to call you Jameson, or do you prefer John, or what would you like us to call you, sir?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I answer to just about anything.
Excellent. Well, I know I did not do a very good Lord Alfred Hayes impersonation there, but that was what your character was explained as when you first joined up with Bobby Heenan on the Bobby Heenan show. Can you tell us how you got into that professional wrestling atmosphere? How you got your start there?
Yeah, it was just kind of one of those shot in the dark. I was doing a murder mystery, playing this character Jameson, and Vince McMahon happened to be in the audience, and he, didn't think much of me, but he loved the character, so he had me come down and in character and meet Bobby and stay in character, don't break character, and just, see what Bobby's reaction would be. And we kind of hit it off right away. We were, we went at it pretty good that very first day we met, and they thought it was great television, and next thing I know, I was the co-host for the Bobby Heenan Show.
Well, I want to get back a little bit to Vince discovered you, and so you were in character for the murder mystery. What was Vince? Was he intimidating to talk to when he saw you perform that?
Not really. I mean, I noticed him right away in the audience, and the show was like half scripted scenes and then half improvisation with the audience. They get a chance to interrogate you. So there's a lot of improvisation stuff, and I knew he was cracking up, beat red from laughing, and so I figured, let me go introduce myself after the show was out. And he was very complimentary in with my performance and everything, but I don't want to say standoffish, just not like one of those hangout guys that's going to grab a beer with you or anything, just get in the limo, go home. But they called right away. That was a Saturday night, and Monday morning the show called the producers of the murder mystery to find out how to get in touch with me. So it kind of happened really fast from there.
Well, do you know if they were already planning to do the Bobby Heenan show? Because, once it started, you were a huge part of that show.
Yeah, they were. They had it in the works. They couldn't find a co-host like the Ed McMahon to Johnny Carson. They're looking for Bobby's Ed McMahon. I'm really dating myself. Probably a lot of your listeners don't remember the Johnny Carson show. But, it was great. They pretty much had a format. They knew they were going to have all these weird guests on that kind of took themselves seriously, but nobody else did. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. Bobby's great. Bobby's such a pro. It was just a real easy show to do. We knocked him right out because we had some good chemistry. And it was great because you never saw Bobby break character, but I was able to break him down a couple times where we had to reshoot, because they wanted Bobby to stay that mean guy who's nothing like that in real life.
I've had the opportunity to meet him a few times, obviously not as extensively as you have, but he is a warm, genuine man. Did you ever have a chance to meet his lovely wife?
Not till later, not till just recently. But she's great. She's awesome, and I could see why they've been together all these years.
So you've recently had interactions with Bobby Heenan?
Yeah, I do, 1, 2, sometimes 3 shows a year, the autograph shows, and he's been at a couple. There was, I guess the first time I saw him was at the New England Fan Fest, probably like maybe a year and a half ago, I want to say.
This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We are talking to WWF Bobby the Brain Heenan Show's Jameson. I've got a question for you as well. Were you a wrestling fan, sir, before you were approached, or is this something that was just completely new to you?
No, I was. I was as a kid, and then my 20s was when things really took off for WWE. When Vince took over, and the whole Lou Albano and MTV thing kind of, to me, was like the turning point for them, when they were, pretty much in mainstream entertainment. It wasn't just wrestling fans that were exposed to it. It was pretty much the whole population. They were really spreading their wings, and, it wasn't just the diehards that knew who Hulk Hogan was.
Right. You mentioned just a while ago how you were doing improv. Working off of Bobby Heenan and his quick wit, was it difficult keeping up with Heenan, or was it difficult for Heenan to keep up with you?
No, I would say it was pretty, pretty good. There were days I got him, and there were days he got me, and I was doing these shows. At the time that I was working on that show, I was doing these murder mysteries that were, you really had to be on your toes. So I was, I was at a part of my career where I was probably at my best with improvisation, and the training in those shows, just unbelievable. You're working with a new audience every night, and it just made it. I had material. I had some, things that were working in the show. I could break them out and use them on the Bobby Heenan show. So it was pretty good, and we had a great time off air too. And feeding each other like straight lines to set each other up. He was great that way, like very, very giving in terms of being had. It was good. It was really good. Most of the talent that was around when we were shooting were very complimentary to me. That we were great together and all that. So it was good. It was a nice relationship. It was very much give and take.
Well, with both of you guys' skill set, how much, and if it's all of it, that's amazing, but how much of it was scripted and how much did they let you guys just run with?
There was absolutely no scripting.
Wow.
It was great. It was, and sometimes we wouldn't see each other till 5 or 10 minutes before we went on set. So it was really, they just were very heavily. I gotta say though, when I started, there was a writer there who set up the gimmick, what we were going to be talking about, and what the situations are. And this was more so after the Bobby Heenan show, when I was just on prime time as an audience member, and they would set up these situations. And the situations were so well set up that it was pretty easy to, run with the storyline, like the in one episode, the Berserker throws me off the roof, and this all the stuff leading up to that was just really well set up, and it was like an improv person's dream walking into the show each week, see what they had, set up for Jameson, and it was really good. It got more difficult when they replaced primetime with Raw, because everything was in the arenas. And Jameson really wasn't a wrestling character, so it made it more difficult for Jameson to fit in, other than just being a manager or a fan. The primetime shows were more storyline oriented than Raw was, and there was really a lot of confusion over what are we doing with Jameson. Vince always was looking for a place to put me, and I know some of the other guys, some of his old school assistants were, not as enthusiastic, let's say, about Jameson being part of the show. So, it had its tough moments as once Raw started.
Do you, I guess my curiosity, do you watch the product now? And if you do, do you see a particular place where a Jameson type character can fit in today's wrestling world?
Not as much. Well, first of all, I don't watch it regularly. Every once in a while I put it on, but it's kind of like a different product. I think there's more, I don't know, everybody had such a defined gimmick back then in those days. Everybody had their character was so much more, I'm looking for the words to describe it, but you had a cowboy, an Indian, you had the Mountie and the British Bulldog and all these guys, Tugboat and the Nasty Boys. It just seemed like they were in more defined. Guys today are more, they don't have a lot of them go by their own names. They're just these unbelievably athletic, strong, some are angry, wrestlers whose gimmicks it's more about their own personalities. They're not so stereotyped. And I think people, it becomes more of a serious kind of thing. I think a lot of the humor that was around back in the late 80s, early 90s is gone. Not to say that a character like Jameson couldn't fit in. I just don't think it's as giving toward that now. You have the divas are a big part now, and it all seems a little bit more serious to me, the tone.
This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We have the privilege of talking to Bobby the Brain Heenan Spoil Jameson from WWF. Let's get the insider's perspective. Let's go over to the Smash Mouth and Heroes and Legends heavyweight champion himself, Drew Skills.
Jameson, it's great to talk to you, buddy.
You too, man.
My question to you is, you talked a little bit about how Jameson would fit in today's wrestling world as far as a character. My question to you is, and I could be wrong, but I think one of your last stints with the company, you was managing in a manager role with the Bushwhackers opposite Leapin' Lanny and the Beverly Brothers. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
How did you as yourself, how'd you fit in with the boys? How'd that work out for you as far as, my good buddy Luke and those guys?
They were great. I mean, and they were, so much of what they did, their gimmick was, based around comedy that, they at least outwardly made me feel very welcome, and, they went along with things that I was doing, and I try to fit in with them, and it was good. It was a good friendship. I just recently saw, Luke, right?
Yeah.
Luke.
Yeah, I just recently saw Luke for the first time in 20 years, and it was great. He was so, warm and fuzzy, and talking about the old times, and it was good. I enjoyed my time with them. I really did. And, it wasn't like they were at a point in their career where they were going to be thrust into a championship match or anything. And it was just kind of fun to just be, the funny guys in the ring. I mean, fans were very, very supportive, and they were good guys to be with because everybody loved them. So, I kind of got to, ride along on their shirt tail, so to speak.
Awesome. Yeah, the Bushwhackers were a little different there than they were when they were the Sheepherders.
Exactly.
Were you on the road with those guys, or did you kind of travel by yourself, or do you have any, as wrestlers, we do a lot of traveling around, and a lot of times, we live through our road stories. What was some of the things you went through as far as traveling with the company?
The funniest time was, one of the things was, off camera I was funny too. I wasn't just, but not in character. More, I certainly wasn't Jameson. As soon as I got a chance to get that suit off, I was happy to do it. But I was, a lot of guys felt like I was the comic relief. Whenever, we finished the show, it was like a caravan of people going to a strip club or something. And I can remember, Vince and Hulk always arguing over whose car I was going in. And, yeah, it was pretty funny. So, and me, I was not, I'm not a big drinker. I wasn't a big partier. I'd want to, I'd try to sneak back to the hotel after the show was out, and they would, I'd always get caught. And
hang on, Jameson. We got to clarify real quick. Were they arguing over whose car you're not going to get into, or were they wanting you in the car?
But believe it or not, they wanted me. As long as I wasn't wearing that greasy suit, they wanted me in their car.
Somebody has to be the designated driver.
Yeah, right. Oh, no. It was always Vince. I always happened to be in a car Vince was driving somehow, which was a story in all itself. But yeah, it was good. I mean, they were really good to me. I saw a lot of funny stuff, a lot of wild stuff. Moving tables in a strip club and these spur of the moment tournaments, wrestling tournaments going on in a strip club. That was pretty funny. Vince was all fired up back in those days, so he would definitely jump in the mix, and there'd be some real NCAA style wrestling going on.
That's awesome. With not necessarily having a wrestling background other than being a fan when Vince discovered you, looking back at it now and what the WWE has become and the longest running episodic, TV show period, and just being a part of that, how does that make you, where does that fit in accomplishments that you've had in your life?
I wish I appreciated while it was going on as much as I appreciate it now. At the time, I was an actor. I was still auditioning for other stuff. I did a few films and a few commercials, and I started doing some theater. But at the time, it always seemed like there was a conflict that I couldn't take an audition or I couldn't sign to do this show because I was under contract with WWE. So there was that going on at that time where I wasn't totally, I don't think, appreciative enough of professional wrestling, that what it opened up for me. And now going to these shows a couple times a year, you really see what camaraderie there is, and the fans are just unbelievable. I mean, I can't even believe they remember my lines from those days better than I do. And it's really been, starting with my first show, which was now probably about 4 years ago. I didn't even know anybody who knew who I was, and it was just very overwhelming, and and very, it was great. It was great. I don't know how to explain it other than to say it was just a very humbling experience. The first show I did, that so many people knew who I was and wanted to know where I'd been and all that. Just really, really great. It's a great business.
That's awesome. And, you're very lucky to be able to, like you were saying before, I've only got a chance to meet Bobby the Brain Heenan recently at Heroes and Legends Fan Fest that I was on, and he is a great guy. What are some of your fondest memories of offset with him? Not necessarily, going back and forth with the banter, and practicing, but just being around Bobby.
He was very interested in what else I had going on, like what shows I was doing, if I had anything coming up in New York City in theater, always curious about my family, and just a really good friend, just very, he's a warm guy. He knew everybody had a life beyond wrestling, and he took an interest, and, we laughed a lot. But we laughed on set about, what was in front of us, and we laughed off set about just life in general. He was just, I can't say enough what just a great guy he was and is. And, he met my son recently, and he doesn't speak well, but he still made the attempt to, try to explain to my 9-year-old son how much I meant to him and how much fun he had working with me back in the day.
That's awesome. You were around the WWE in a time where backstage a lot of ribbing was going on, practical joking. Do you remember did you ever fall victim to a practical joke that was slung your way?
No, I don't think if I did, I don't recall it. But there was always constantly somebody. Poor Ric Flair, who was another awesome guy. I mean, just, you can't say enough about him either. Just a giving, wonderful guy he was. He was always seemed to be the butt of people's jokes. And I mean, they would tear his hotel room up, hide his clothes, piss in his bed, just like high school fun, but, 15 years later. He was great, and he was a great sport, and he was very generous and all that, but he always seemed to be, there was a night he would always get, we would make our own hotel. The company got our hotel rooms and all that. But he would always upgrade to like the presidential suite or the honeymoon suite or whatever you'd call it. And somehow people, and somehow people would get into his room and just, do some damage. Let's say. But it was all in fun, and I don't remember any real. I'm sure there were feuds going on, personality conflicts and stuff, but I kind of kept to myself. I didn't really, as much as I could. I didn't really, get wind of any real bad. I mean, I know a lot of people had their feelings about Vince that weren't all positive, but he was always so good to me. He was so, generous and really, really appreciated what I brought to the table. And the guy always treated me like gold, very generous, and always made me feel welcome. So, he was great. I know, I'm sure everybody has their problems, or their personality flaws and all that. And I'm sure people have had some reason to not like him and all that. You hear a lot of stories, but for me, everything I saw, he was top notch, a great guy. It was a great experience. Like I said, I just wish I had appreciated it more at the time, as much as I appreciate it now.
We are the Undisputed Wrestling Show, and we are on www.angrymarks.com. You can also check us out on Facebook, and you can hit us up at www.theundisputedwrestlingshow.weebly.com to check out our full lineup of guests that are coming up. And let's kick it back over to the bearded wonder himself, Zane Paisley.
Well, Jameson, you had mentioned your son meeting Bobby Heenan recently, but a lot of our listeners probably don't know that they've seen your son on wrestling before. Can you tell us how your son became a member of the Wyatt family?
Yeah, that was great. I mean, we were actually getting ready to go to L.A. He was shooting big commercial, like a campaign. It was multiple ads for the same product, and we got a call the Friday. We were leaving that Monday. Got a call on Friday from his agent saying that WWE called and they want their best 8 to 10-year-old boy, the agency's best 8 to 10-year-old boy, to do a gig on a pay-per-view event in Jersey. And he was so excited because he is a fan. And I was like, James, we're leaving the next morning, but early. It might go past midnight. But I caved and we did it. I thought it was going to be like a promo or something, just a quick little thing where they'd run us in and run it out. And it turned out they wanted him for the main event to play the Wyatt brothers' little mascot there, and where he stops Cena cold at the steel cage gate door there, and Bray actually recovers and because my son stopped him at the door, he was kind of distracted, and Wyatt knocks him out and wins the match. So it was great. I mean, it was so good. It was really great. Like, everybody that saw it that knows who I am and knows he's my son, everybody right away thought I got him the gig, and I had absolutely nothing to do with it. They used the agency my son is represented by, WWE does, for casting, and he was red hot at the time, my son, and when they said, send us your best kid, he got the call. So it was great. It was good seeing Vince again after 20 years. He didn't recognize me at first. It was really a funny moment when he was introducing himself to my son and then to me. And I said, Vince, you don't recognize me, do you? He's like, yeah, you look familiar. So I made the Jameson face, and he almost fell down. It was great.
Have you gotten your glasses fixed since then?
No, I should have had them, but I didn't. I was not. I'm going to tell you the funniest thing. My son had, obviously never worked before for WWE, and none of the wrestlers knew who I was. And everybody wanted a picture with my son because they found out he was the kid in the Cam Newton commercial that he did for the NFL a couple of years ago. That's still running.
Yep.
When they found out he was that kid, they all wanted his picture together. It was great. It was really good for him. I mean, he met Cena. Cena was a nice guy, and the Bella twins were all over him, which was like, he still has the picture. And it was great because they approached him. They asked him if they could take a picture with him like he was the star. And it was nice. The kid's 9 years old, and he signed more autographs in his life than I did.
Well, okay, so he was the little Wyatt kid at Extreme Rules.
Right.
And our listeners will remember him from the Cam Newton ad for NFL Play 60, and also he's been you mentioned a major campaign that's for the Amazon phone campaign, right?
Where right, Fire Phone. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It was the Amazon Fire Phone.
Yeah, and he's the little hipster kid, and it's just amazing. I've been friends with you on Facebook for a little over a year now, and I realized, through some of your posts that James is your son, and he's such a cute kid that you recognize him whenever you see him. And as you said, he is blowing up. Can you tell us a little about what his latest project is?
Right now he's got a recurring role on a Disney Channel sitcom with Zendaya. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of her. She a multi-talented kid. She's like 18 years old. She's got a voice of a superstar. She was on Dancing with the Stars, unbelievable dancer, and an unbelievable actor. I coach kids, audition technique and stuff like that. And this girl she just blows me away. And James plays her next door neighbor. So he's got that. He's got a film coming out any day called Brooklyn. He's got a pretty big role in that. And he's doing stand-up in New York City. He does a regular show every month at Gotham Comedy Club, which is kind of cool because it's all adults. He's, the only kid on the card. And it's pretty cool to see the audience reaction when they introduce him. They're not expecting to see this 4-foot-tall 9-year-old get up on stage, but he knocks it out of the park. I mean, he's got great material, and he's got a great presence on stage, and it's fun. He's kind of like my full-time job these days, and then I have a couple of part-time jobs so I could pay the bills.
Well, and speaking of your kids, your daughter just had her birthday yesterday, right? Yeah,
sweet 16, unbelievable. And this kid, if you saw a family photo, you would think she was the actor in the family. She's an absolute knockout, but too shy to do what her brother does.
Well, and you just mentioned doing some training with kid actors to audition. Have you ever thought about doing improv training with the Performance Center in WWE? I would think that you would be perfect in that role.
It's funny. I'm of the belief that improv can't be taught, that it's you either have it or you don't have it. And I don't know how to go about teaching people how to be quicker, how to think of things quicker, or, it's just not something I'm comfortable teaching because I don't, all of my improv skills come just from, being quick-witted and having a sense of what people think is funny. I think they have these, believe me, they have these improv classes everywhere that you could go and spend your money and you come out after 6 or 8 weeks and you're no funnier. I just think that improv is something that either, and I know a lot of great actors that have horrible improv skills, and I know a lot of great stand-up comics that aren't funny off stage. It's just, the only thing that I think you can really teach a person is how to audition, not so much how to, it's hard to teach somebody how to be funny on the spur of the moment or to think about. All these shows like, what's that show Drew Carey used to host?
Whose Line Is It Anyway? Yeah.
These guys are just blessed, guys and girls, are just blessed with, really good minds. I think improv is just, trying to learn it or teach it is a big waste of time, waste of money.
Well,
you got it and you don't have it.
Now, you mentioned that James has done stand-up, and I know that you've done stand-up and you've worked for comedy clubs. Can you kind of compare the similarities and the differences between the professional wrestling industry and stand-up comedy?
There are some similarities in that, there are guys in wrestling that were just, when the camera was rolling, were just naturals that were funny and entertaining and didn't need a lot of coaching from crew on set. Mr. Perfect was hilarious. He was, he could probably roll out of bed and be funny and entertaining. Roddy Piper, same thing. And then there were guys that were, they always had Bobby around to have on camera with him because that's who you were watching. You know what I mean? Like, he would always make them better. But some guys didn't need Bobby, so some guys were just really good on camera. And it's like that, I guess, in any business where, right away you know who you want to be like. It's that way in comedy. It's that way. And preparation is similar, too. I mean, most of these guys, didn't lack any confidence when they were in the ring in, doing their matches. That was where they were most comfortable. But it was like off, when they come out of the ring and they're interviewed or something where they were starting to get nervous or like pacing, like, what am I going to say? And stuff like that. And there's that nervousness in stand-up too. Guys, sometimes they don't eat for hours before a show. They just can't. They're such a bundle of nerves. But that, it's just like, well, if you don't have butterflies, regardless of what you're doing to stand up or doing the gimmick at a wrestling match, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. You got to have that nervous energy, and that's where I see it being. I always felt like when I was doing Jameson, because you're totally on your own. It's not like, it's great training for an actor because you never get nervous as an actor. You never get stage fright when you're doing improvisation-driven performances. But that's what it was like. That's why wrestling, you can equate it to stand-up comedy because it was, you were totally reliant on what you were getting back from either somebody else in the interview or the studio audience or the live audience. Whether or not you bomb sometimes depends on other people, regardless of how well prepared you are.
We are the Wrestling Show, and we are privileged to be talking to Jameson this evening. Jameson, but how did it end? How did the Jameson character phase out in professional wrestling and it was all over?
There was kind of like an understanding between Vince and I that it really wasn't working for me because everything was tours. All the shows I was involved. Well, all the shows, period, were all done on the road. There was really no more shooting at the studio. And for me to go on the road, it meant that for that time, I wasn't going to be doing anything else, any other work as an actor. And I had started writing, and a few of my plays got produced in New York City, and it was just it was just too big a pull for me. So I was perfectly willing to let my contract expire and not do another one unless something was going to change where, like, Vince always kept the door open. He would always say, like, if we're doing anything at the studio or, you know, we'll have you back. And it was very mutual. It was not by any means like, you're out or, you know, that kind of conversation. It was more like when we're going to have you do this until your contract is up or, so it was good. And then I, you know, right as soon as I left WWE, I started doing a lot of theater in Manhattan. It always seemed like I was going from show to show. So, you know, it wasn't like I missed it right away or anything like that. I was a pretty busy actor. And it wasn't until years later that I realized, like, you know, maybe I should have hung in there or, not made such an issue out of, you know, what I was giving up to be with the WWF. But, you know, looking back now, I mean, I still have no regrets. Wrestling was great for me. It helped me get an agent. It helped me get other work because I was in the minds of agents. I was somebody you could see on TV a couple times a week. And, you know, there's value to that. So, you know, it was great. It was great while it lasted. It's great now going back to it. And it's, you know, no complaints. And by getting out, I did get a chance to do some stuff that I wouldn't have been able to do if I had stayed. So, I got no regrets.
Refresh my aging memory, if you would. Had Bobby already gone to WCW by then?
You know, it all happened right around the same time. I left, and then shortly after was the big exodus. In fact, I got a call to see if there was any interest in me going to Atlanta. But I was kind of over it at that time, and things were not good with the WWE. And if I was having trouble getting to Stamford, Connecticut from New York, I was certainly going to have more trouble getting to Atlanta from New York. So for me, it was all okay, you know.
Drew Skills, last shot from you, sir.
I'm sorry?
Last question I have is,
go ahead.
I know you said it was kind of a mutual thing when you guys when you parted ways with the WWF at the time. While you were in the mix and while you were doing your thing, did you ever have any aspirations or goals inside the company to elevate or evolve the character, or was just kind of rolling with the tide?
No, you know, you always want, while you're there, I definitely wanted my character to rise to something big. But it was kind of obvious early on that, you know, I guess the only other thing I could have done was actually get in the ring. And I was always eager to do that. You know, I thought it would have been really funny for me to fight a girl or fight a midget or something like, you know, some type of handicap match. And I was in really good shape in those days. I mean, you'd be surprised what I looked like under that suit. I was very fit. I had wrestling background and a boxing background. And I know a lot of the guys appreciated that whenever we did anything physical, that I was all about, yeah, hit me for real, you know, throw me for real. You know, so yeah, I definitely had aspirations of going beyond what I did. And that would have been to like get in the ring and really, you know, get roughed up.
Could you have whipped Harvey Whippleman?
You know, I never met him.
No, really?
And I didn't, and I had, I think he was right after me. I don't know, it's so long ago, but I think he was right after me, and is that possible? Was he in the 90s?
It's possible.
I think you and Slick could have headlined the Mania.
Let's kick it back over to the bearded wonder himself, ZP.
Well, thank you so much, Jameson, for being on our show tonight. And as I mentioned earlier, that I've been Facebook friends with you for a while. How can our listeners follow your career and you can let them know what upcoming events that you'll be at, signings, that sort of thing, so they can get a picture with you or get an autograph and make their day? Yeah.
Best way would be to friend me on Facebook at Jameson, former WWF. And even better to like my son's page, because I post a lot more stuff on there about, he's doing so much more than I am. He really is. He's done more in 3 years than I did in 15 years. But But either way, his name is James Anthony DiGiacomo. And so, feel free to like that page and or to friend me on Facebook at Jameson, former WWF.
Well,
I would have kicked Harvey Whippleman's ass.
That's what we wanted to hear, Jameson. Thank you.
Just throwing that out there.
Well, and is there anything that you want to plug, any of your charity work or anything? I know you don't do charity for yourself, but I know that you are definitely interested in charity. Where can our listeners go and to make a difference in this world?
Yeah, we James and I both do a lot of stuff for animal rescue. But for me, even more importantly, I'm involved with Meals on Wheels, which is a great organization that's available in most communities. And it's really easy to raise money for animals because they're cute and all that, and you see a picture of a dog in a cage and you want to vomit. But like the elderly in this country, there's so many needy elderly people, and somehow I put a little more importance on them than I do on animals. And believe me, I love animals, and I encourage everybody to support animal rescue and all that. But the one that's closest to my heart would probably be Meals on Wheels. So if you guys, anybody out there, I know money's tight these days, and they're not just looking for money. Volunteer a couple hours a week, but the elderly in this country are the forgotten the forgotten part of the population.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And can I ask one favor of you? Can you do the Jameson voice and say, this is Jameson, you're listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show?
I'll even do it in character.
Yes.
Tell me when.
Go ahead.
Hi, guys. This is Jameson, and you're listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show? All right.